The Wellbeings Campaign presents LGBTQIA+ Youth Finding Wellbeing in Community, a special town hall conversation, shedding light and offering hope on the mental health challenges faced by LGBTQIA+ youth. With staggering statistics and rising concerns of violence and stigma, it's more important than ever to create a safe space for discussion and support. Led by Youth for Youth, join us for this town hall conversation exploring the resilience of LGBTQIA+ youth and how to find well-being in community in the face of adversity.
Teenagers, we're Olympic athletes, we're young inventors, we're musicians, we're activists.
We come from so many backgrounds and are the most connected we've ever been.
But we have our own set of challenges.
Depression, anxiety, and stress are on the rise.
Thankfully, we're not in it alone.
Yes.
On Our Minds is a podcast about the teenage experience,
Have a resource and an outlet so that they can better understand themselves.
made by teens, for teens.
Each season includes 2 teen hosts and covers topics such as grades,
Coming out,
eating disorders,
self-esteem,
cultural identity.
and all the things we as teenagers face.
Student reporters from across the country produce stories.
We also talk with psychologists, musicians, authors, and athletes to get advice about mental health and well-being.
Hold it in too long, then it can become overwhelming.
There's a lot on our minds, and talking about it helps.
On Our Minds is a project of the PBS NewsHour Student Reporting Labs.
Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome, I'm Zion Williams, a passionate advocate for mental health and former co-host of On Our Minds. I'm your host today for what promises to be a rewarding and meaningful conversation, focusing on LGBTQIA+ youth, not only the challenges individuals face, but also how to cultivate mental well-being and develop a sense of community as we all move forward in life. We are not going to talk about LGBTQIA+ youth as so many others have done. Instead, we will listen. We are here in Detroit with a panel of young people from around the nation and allies who will share personal experiences and insight on a range of important topics. We are joined by a live studio audience consisting mainly of LGBTQIA+ youth. They will have a chance to ask questions and have their voices heard as well. Our first panel today explores the mental health issues faced by the LGBTQIA+ community, while a second panel discusses the importance of community and support in promoting well-being. Now let's introduce our first guest. So Matt, you can go ahead.
Hi, my name is Matt Suskan. I'm 18 and I'm a high school senior at Bergen County Academies in Hackensack, New Jersey.
Billy.
Hi, my name is Billy. I am 20. My pronouns are she, they, and I am a junior at Willamette University.
Ari, you can go ahead.
Hi, my name is Ari. I am 16 and I am a junior at Saline High School.
And Stephanie.
I'm Stephanie Lang. I am 50, since everybody's saying their age. I'm a social worker, she, her pronouns, at Dakota High School. I'm the student assistant specialist there, and I'm also the president of the board of Camp Talahi in Howell, Michigan.
Okay, thank you guys so much for your wonderful intros. So I'm gonna go to Matt. As a former co-host of On Our Minds, you know a lot about the mental health crisis. So can you talk a little bit about how that crisis affects LGBTQ+ youth?
Sure, thank you. I really like that question and I have a lot of thoughts, so I will try to keep my thoughts as concise as possible. But I would say that being a member of the LGBTQ+ community, you have that added struggle of facing these issues specific to the queer community on top of issues that you'll already face in school environments or just being part of Gen Z. So for instance, some of those that come to mind are just competition in terms of academics can be difficult sometimes. You also have issues of social media that pertain to youth, all of which are topics that we discuss on season 2 of On Our Minds with me and Faiza, if you want to check that out. But regardless, one thing that came to me when you said that question was I think about how in my personal experience in school, oftentimes I go into every interaction with a new person thinking like I really don't know what to expect in terms of how comfortable I can be with this person. And oftentimes I'll have like a 1 minute, 2 minute conversation. I'll be very relaxed and I think that I'm talking to this person is very comfortable, and then I might find out that actually this person has done some things that are homophobic, that are very questionable, and then that leaves me feeling confused a lot of the time. So I think that that's just an added difficulty as a queer person. You're going through every interaction, not really knowing who you're talking to, what you're going to get, what level of comfortability you can really have. But one other thing that I did want to offer is that I'm currently a high school senior. I'm graduating this year, and in the fall I will be attending Harvard University. But I'm currently in that really awkward stage where we're talking to a lot of different people online saying, hi, what are you going to major in, stuff like that, just all the basics. And I did talk to this one person from a very rural area in West Virginia, and he was very open about his story as someone who is queer. And I thought it was very interesting that he talked about how he had a very good support group. And that was just really interesting to me because I didn't think that West Virginia, this rural, very small school, was the most conducive environment to feeling safe as a member of the LGBTQ community. But he talked very openly about how he was able to find that support system. So one thing that I guess I would like to offer is oftentimes when we think of a support system, we think of someone who is super pro LGBTQ+, is saying everything right, doing everything correctly, but that's not necessarily the case. So for example, this is a very small thing, but over my last 24 hours in Detroit, I've been wearing these rings, which a few people have complimented me on, so to reiterate, thank you. But for instance, one of the rings is like pink and they're both pretty like sparkly, and that's something that when I bought these and when my mom saw them, my mom really didn't like them. She felt uncomfortable with me wearing them. But I still consider my mom like one of like my biggest supporters. I consider her my support system. And sometimes she doesn't get everything right. Sometimes if I'm wearing like eyeliner or maybe I'm wearing like a crop top or something like that that's not very traditionally masculine, my mom will get uncomfortable. And oftentimes I do try to open up that conversation with her just so we can contemplate things. But I guess just to wrap up my thoughts, when you're talking with people who you're close with that support system, it's important to remember that just because they might not be saying the correct things 100% of the time, it doesn't necessarily come out of this place that, oh, they don't respect you and your queerness or you as an individual. Sometimes people just come from different backgrounds and generations, and it's important to remember that and to have those conversations with those people, because oftentimes their misunderstanding comes truly just out of that misunderstanding and not out of any sense of hatred.
Thank you, Matt. We're going to move on to RA. So we know that race plays a role in finding yourself and talking about your sexuality. So can you kind of talk about what it's like, the difference between being a person of color and being a white person and experiencing that?
In my experiences, being like biracial and connecting with different groups and minorities brings compounding challenges. I kind of can connect or can't connect with other groups. For instance, like the white LGBTQIA community could not accept my blackness, while the black community could not accept my queerness, right? And that can go for all, different types of minorities and things like that. So it can be kind of hard to really connect with people. I sometimes can feel like isolated because no one is exactly like me, right? But the silver lining of that is I am diversity, right? I am not afraid of diversity. I can really connect and interact with so many people, and even though feeling like you can't connect or you don't relate to people because they're for me it's just really hard to find someone who's biracial, LGBTQ, Jewish, and it can be really hard to find someone to connect to. I can still connect to people who are not like me. That's the easiest thing for me. So yeah, it's kind of depends.
Okay, and Stephanie, I'm going to move on to you. We know you're a social worker and you work with students in high school. So can you talk a little bit about how we as a society are kind of lacking in supporting the students you work with?
So, in my experience, there are supports available. So there are places where families can go to get support. However, a lot of times when your child comes out to you, I feel like parents, even really supportive parents that want to be involved and want to be advocates for their child, don't know where to go, don't know who to call. So there's hidden gems out there, and once our network really starts to work together and we can find these parents that are in need, we can connect them with resources that can help their family to be able to adjust. A lot of the times what we say is when you have a child, you kind of have a lot of ideas and thoughts and plans for what your child's life is going to be like. It's just kind of part of being a parent. You can't help it. I mean, at least I couldn't help it. So to find out that it's not going to be the way you thought, there's some things parents have to go through too, as well as what youth are going through. So I think it's hard because resources are few and far between. The resources that we have can be very, very useful. It's just getting connected to them and getting everyone on the same page to where, that's one thing I have to say is good about COVID, because a lot of things became virtual. So like if there's something in Portland or, New Jersey or wherever, I can connect to people there as well, not just people that are within driving distance of me. So that's been one thing that I think has been really positive with helping people get resources.
Okay. And Billy, I'm going to move it on to you. So Billy, for people who don't know about gender dysphoria, can you talk a little bit about what that feels like and what it is?
So gender dysphoria is different from everyone. How you experience it is very personalized. And for me, I just came up with this analogy today. I kind of describe it as I'm one of those Lego dudes, but I have the wrong pieces fit in. It just feels like I was born wrong. And it has gotten better since I've started hormone replacement therapy. It's helped me gain more confidence, but there still are aspects of my body that I really hate. I kind of just see what's between my legs as more of a tumor than an actual part of me. It just feels like it's not supposed to be there. But again, it's different for everyone. There are trans people who don't experience gender dysphoria, and there are cis people who do experience gender dysphoria, but don't exactly want to transition. So it's not just a singular issue. It affects everyone.
Okay. And if you feel comfortable, can you talk a little bit about how that affected your mental health?
Not good. It caused me a lot of anxiety and depression, especially whenever I'd be going out in public, I'd feel like everyone is staring at me, and even now, I pass very well, so if there's random people, they'll assume that I am a bio woman. And so they'll come up to me and start talking, and the moment they hear my voice, they take a moment of confusion and they try to correct themselves, but no, you're right the first time. Yeah. So it definitely has caused a lot of issues.
Thank you for sharing that. And Ari, I'm going to move on to you. So we've seen a lot of violence against trans people, but especially trans women of color. So can you talk a little bit about how that affected the LGBTQIA+ community?
Well, I can speak on my personal experiences as a non-binary person. And so I really feel like I have to really kind of hide who I am and figure out who I can trust very easily in settings. And so, for example, one of the things my family does all the time is we go to Disney World, right? And that's in the South, in Florida. We go to Florida. And so Disney World has been an advocate, and they've shown that. But, passing through some states, my family has had to talk about if I have to wear a dress in order to make sure that they don't take me away from my family and my sister, excuse me. And so that's really heavy to have to put on a child, especially, that, just because I'm different and dress how I want, and, it doesn't fit, people's standards of a man and a woman, that I could be taken away and my parents could be thrown in jail. And, I already understand that my parents have to go to my school and have to tell them that I am not a threat and I'm not going to hurt anybody. And listening and talking about, people like me in books is not going to hurt anybody. And so really having to experience this and hear all about all this anger being kind of positioned at us because we're a supposed threat is really damaging. Because, how are we supposed to call this our home when our country is not going to protect who we are just because we're, a little different of how we dress or what we want to be called. So it can be damaging.
Yeah, and I think that has a lot to do with like fear and ignorance for the
Yeah.
most part. Yeah. Well, Stephanie, I'm gonna move on to you. We know you're an ally and a advocate for the LGBTQIA+ community. So can you talk about a time where you provided support to one of your students and kind of what that was like?
Yeah, so I would say on a regular basis, there's a need to provide support to students at the school for sure. I was thinking about one thing in particular, though, with this question. And Ari, I really appreciate what you said about safety, because that is one of the things that I really try to work on with all my students is how to increase their safety and their ability to advocate for themselves when it's needed, whether it has to do with the bathroom or whatever it is. There's so many things, as everybody has spoken about already. There was a student in particular who had been kicked out of their home because they were transgender and they had come out to their folks and they had nowhere to live. And there are some really amazing programs that can help children in Michigan, and we were not able to connect at that time with them. And so we put together all of our resources and networked together to find a place for this young person to live while they were homeless and help them get the resources they needed to apply for college and to be able to go to college. And so it was really exciting to be able to use all of our community resources that we had. And this young person is still in college now and doing really super great. But it took a whole bunch of people that cared enough to talk to each other and call each other and to really put ourselves out there so that this young person didn't have to live outside. And so I feel that it is really sad, the fear that people turn into, anger's a really nice mask for fear. And so people use this anger and it can bring people to the point of taking their own child and kicking them out of their home just because of who they are. Doesn't match up with who they thought their child should be. And that's probably the thing that sticks out in my mind the most, is watching that young person go from so scared and so hopeless of not knowing what was going to happen to them, how they were going to get food, to watching them, go off to college and have an amazing life once they found some adults that would really support them and allow them to be who they are. So that's probably one of the coolest things that I could think of offhand. But, in 25 years, there's a lot of students that need a lot of things. And you really hit me with that, with what you said. You really, really did. That was very well said, Ari. Thank you so much.
And Matt, I want to talk a little bit about like identity, and I heard that you are really involved in your school with like your peer groups and everything. So how do you see your friends or peers struggle with their identity, and what can we do as society to help support them?
I think oftentimes the best way for support can be representation. And I know that the word representation is used a lot as a buzzword, but I do think that it's important to dissect what that truly means a lot of the time. I find generally that a lot of queer representation that we see in the media is very white focused. So for example, there was this show, Love, Victor, and that was a show that I loved, and it was so corny. Like half the time I'm like not even looking at it, just reading the subtitles, because like I don't even want to like look at it, because sometimes it can get like really like cringe. But nonetheless, I would watch it because the main character was Colombian, which I'm Colombian. It was also a scenario where the family was very religious, where the dad was more accepting than the mom, which I feel like is something we don't see very often. So even though I found the show very corny, it checked off a lot of these boxes for me, where it's like I felt like this resembled my experience, and thus I wanted to engage with that sort of content. So I do think that expanding representation in terms of these intersectional experiences is very important. But I also think that you asked specifically about my peers. Something that I see very often is that a lot of times in like school settings, for example, I think it's important to look out for your friends who are queer, and when they feel uncomfortable in a certain situation, like interacting with like different people. I think it can be a great thing to do to change the topic, try to like deviate the focus. I find that a lot of the times, people who are allies, obviously like that's very appreciated when people are very quick to want to be like a queer advocate and very vocal. That is, of course, appreciated. But at the same time, I find that often in these little moments, I find that people rush to like turn on the teleprompter and start a whole panel discussion in like the middle of like the school, which is not necessary all the time. I think it's important to be able to really read the room, and if you notice some of like your queer friends are uncomfortable, and just to kind of like, deviate the focus, as I said before. But in terms of like smaller moments, I think that there can be topics that, like this is a more granular example, but one thing that I've noticed in my school specifically is that there are a lot of people who would be out as like bisexual earlier in like freshman year, and now they've kind of explored their sexuality and like realized that they're gay. And I find that oftentimes people would be like, oh, ha ha ha, like remember when you were like bi in freshman year? And it's stuff like that, where it's like that commentary just like isn't very necessary. And it's those little moments that I think people often don't think about. But like sexual orientation, gender identity, all that stuff is very fluid. So, it's just important, of course, to always be respectful of where people are coming from.
So Billy, can you talk a little bit about what it feels like for like topics like what Matt was saying to be debated politically?
I kind of describe it as like a bittersweet feeling, because I do really appreciate, and I like to see that this is being covered a lot more, and we are getting more representation. And you do see in a lot of states they enact legislation to help make sure trans kids are safe there. But then you also see a lot of states where they are taking our rights away. They're denying us health care. I saw one of these laws. It banned drag queens from being in drag in public. And how do you describe what a drag queen is? They could just persecute any trans woman who is wearing a dress as a drag queen and prosecute them for that. So there are some good parts of it, but it mostly just makes me angry. Like, I hear people like talk about queer joy, but I don't really feel like I have that anymore. It's more so just queer rage.
Stephanie, what is the disconnect here between these topics being debated politically at a national level?
Yeah, so kind of going off of what Billy was saying, right now, what I see happening, in my opinion, is social justice issues are being mistaken for purely political issues. And not everything social justice necessarily needs to be political. And I also feel like right now the word freedom means different things to different people. So some people think that they should have all the freedom while they are squelching other people's freedom. And I think that there's some pros to having this debated at the national level, because I think that it might be brought to more people's attention. I think sometimes there's a silent majority of folks who just don't know what's going on in the world. So by it being debated openly like this nationally, I think it does help in some way. But also when there are people that are hateful and want to create hateful, restrictive legislation and laws, that ends up really hurting young people because they already feel marginalized to begin with. They can't even vote. and now their own individual their own identity is being debated by people who've never met them and don't know anything about them. So I feel like there's pros and cons to it. I wish there were more pros, and I wish it didn't have to hurt so many people while it was being debated. But hopefully this will bring attention, much needed attention, to make some positive changes that need to happen in this country, because everybody really needs to be free, not just certain parts of the population.
Okay, guys, I'm going to wrap it up. So thank you so much for your perspectives. I really appreciate it, and I'm sure the audience appreciated it as well. So next up, we'll take some live questions from the audience. Stay tuned.
The time I felt misunderstood is when I told my dad I was gay. That's when I felt misunderstood, like, a lot. Because he didn't take it how I wanted him to take it.
I was scared to come out, and I just hid myself, and I fell into like a huge depression and couldn't trust anyone.
I had told someone that I was bisexual, and because of that, they thought that I liked everyone around me. I liked every boy and every girl, and they made fun of me for that.
I identify male, and my pronouns are he and him. People expect trans people to dress or express themselves very certain ways that are quite binding.
The biggest stereotype that you get surrounding being gender fluid or having pronouns that aren't necessarily set in stone is the stereotype of the special snowflake, or the person who's just doing it to get attention or faking it specifically.
In my day-to-day life, that's people being weirded out by me or being confused by me or misgendering me all the time, and it's not something that I should be dealing with or that any transgender person should be dealing with, because we want to just live our lives like everyone else.
It hurt because I was being bullied for it, but it was also, I tried to understand her because she didn't really understand me.
All my friends were compassionate. They didn't treat me differently like my old friend, and it was just finding the right group of friends to support you.
Being me is being myself, and that's whatever comes with me.
You are valid because you are. No matter who you are, no matter what you are, no matter what you identify as or what you feel, you are valid, your feelings are valid, and that's the most important thing.
It's now time to bring our great studio audience into the conversation. Who has a question for our insightful panelists, Matt, Billy, Ari, and Stephanie?
The question I have, which is open to anyone, what advice would you have for a younger adult who's nervous about disclosing their identity?
For me, one of the things that I started doing was just changing my clothing. Really digging down deep and figure out what makes me happy and not what makes society happy. For me, dressing trans mask is what makes me feel like me. And so what I think what you want to start doing possibly is, maybe just making sure that you, as yourself, are not fitting society's standards because that's how you feel like you need to. Really make sure that you're dressing how you want, if you don't have to go off bat and say, I'm they, them, he, him, but really just slowly opening yourself up so that you can experiment. And so, yeah, that's just my thoughts.
You never have any obligation to disclose your identity to anyone. It's completely up to you who you want to tell and who you prefer to keep it a secret from. And especially a lot of people don't have a healthy or a safe home environment for where they can fully come out. And so again, it should be if you're comfortable disclosing your identity, then I believe you should go for it. But if it is a risk to your own safety, then I do advocate more so of keeping it secretive, at least in that unsafe environment. When you're out in public or you're with your friends, you can dress, flaunt it however you want, just as long as you are staying safe while you do so.
This is for all the panelists and anybody would feel comfortable answering it, what do you see is the role of your school in ensuring that you are allowed to be fully who you are in every way safely, regardless to the bigotries, ignorances, fears, hatred, whatnot of other students or their families? How active or vocal of a role do you feel they should play? And how do you feel about the role of the school in protecting student identities when maybe they are not safe at home?
Students should be able to feel safe within their schools, and it's extremely unfortunate that nowadays that is not the case, with so many school shootings and so many schools that are now forcing kids to come out. Like, if you want to have different pronouns in your school, then they are forcing teachers to inform your parents about that pronoun change. And that can be extremely harmful, especially if your parents are a lot less accepting. So I believe that schools should just be a safe environment for anyone to identify how they want, to dress how they want, because it may be for a lot of these kids that school is the only time that they are able to fully express their gender identity rather than hiding it.
Schools are supposed to keep kids safe. And so whether or not they, believe in, what everybody, believes in, they still have an obligation to keep students safe. And so I feel like they have no choice in the role whether they should make kids do things. And if they want someone, they should provide safety by, having someone there for kids to talk to, like counseling. Like my school has a DEI specialist, and I think all schools should have one because there can definitely be problems. And so with someone knowing what they're doing and how to go about, the LGBTQ or, community, especially in youth and schools, how to go about fixing problems, it should be talked to specialists because the schools has an obligation to keep, again, the kids safe. It shouldn't matter, their home life or what they identify as or, anything. They should have no say in the matter whether, they need to come out to their parents or they need to start dressing this way or not. And they should have no say whether, there's, they're acting badly because of how they want to dress and, how they want to socially, present themselves. They really should have no say in the matter because at the end of the day, unfortunately, now we have those shooter drills. We should be looking at making kids safe, not about, personalizing every kid and, that they must be a problem because they, identify or, are doing the things their own. They should make it, comfortable and open to everyone because, schools can't go to every individual and be like, what do you need? What do you need? What do you need? They should look at it as open to everybody, safety for everybody. No matter if, it's controversial, having a gender-neutral bathroom, everyone can use the bathroom. That's, there's a bathroom. You can use it. It's not like there's no bathrooms, so.
Yeah, and adding on to that, Ari, I love what you said. And just from the public school perspective, I can't speak to private schools or, different schools, but public schools have a responsibility to educate students. And it's very hard to educate a student who's dysregulated because they're afraid to go in the hall between classes or use a bathroom or ride the bus or whatever. So going to your point, if education is really the ultimate goal, safety has to be there. And the public schools have to serve the public, the entire public, every single person. They can't be picky and choosy and say, no, sorry, we're not going to serve you. We're not going to serve you. We serve everybody. And so I think it's really important that there's a fine line schools have to draw because we have to serve the people who might be comfortable with gender neutral bathrooms and people that are uncomfortable. So I feel like every school right now is being put into a unique situation, and everyone's got some growing pains across at least this state. I can't speak for other states that I'm not involved in. And I'm hoping that this is going to result in a really great opportunity for everyone. You know, I always kind of say that it can be an opportunity for growth and for expansion. It's growing pains, it's painful right now, but I really do feel like it's going to get sorted out, and hopefully for the better. That's my hope.
Definitely.
Yeah, thank you, Stephanie, for that. We're going to have to wrap it up with the commentary and the questions. I want to thank our panelists for sharing their experiences and to our audience for their thoughtful questions. Stay tuned for our second panel, which will discuss the crucial role of community and support in finding well-being.
I'm just a normal teenager, and I'm figuring out what my normal is.
Jake Wagner, a 9th grader from Austin, Texas, came out as transgender in November of 2020. His process of both forming and forging his identity was a normal part of his adolescence, much like Wednesday Gomez, a 10th grader, also from Austin, Texas, whose views on gender and sexuality have also recently become more clear.
I'm non-binary, which means I'm not a boy or a girl, and I don't really identify with either of those things. I kind of everything and nothing at the same time.
Many teens and their families are learning the value of self-discovery. According to national surveys from the CDC, the percentage of young people ages 15 to 17 who identify as non-heterosexual grew from just over 8% in 2015 to nearly 12% in 2019.
I had a really hard time, being able to be happy before I came out. I was sort of yeah, I am happy, but I'm not being myself and being happy at the same time, which felt really off for me. Even though I don't know a lot of things right now, as a younger person, I know who I am.
The process of coming out looks different for each person who goes through it.
Mentally, I've just been a lot happier because I feel like I've always tried to keep this in my own head because I didn't really know what it was or how to explain it. But then when I came out, I was just okay. And I felt so much more mental freedom.
I have been feeling so much more connected to myself and represented in my life, and every time someone refers to me correctly, it just really helps me feel very much secure and grounded in my identity. When people ask
with more than 3 out of 4 transgender and non-binary youth experiencing symptoms of anxiety disorder last year, many are looking for more support.
I think today's youth are really aware of the fact that they don't have to fit into a box.
Or you want songs?
Families can model supportive behavior for others to follow, such as using gender-inclusive language, respecting pronouns, and avoiding dead naming, the use of the person's former name, to better create an open dialogue and promote acceptance.
It's not about you. Your job is to show up and love your kid unconditionally. Your sweet baby is the same sweet baby that you always had and watched grow up. The transition doesn't undo or make them a different person.
Having a supportive community can give transitioning teens an open space to communicate and express what they need to feel safe.
I think it's important for everybody to express themselves and just live as the person that they want to be.
It's okay to not know who you are, and you'll figure it out eventually, and it's important to feel supported even if you aren't quite sure what you need to be supported in quite yet.
For the PBS NewsHour Student Reporting Labs, I'm Alice Scott in Austin, Texas.
Welcome back. Our second panel will explore the role of community and support in promoting well-being and finding solutions and resources for emotional health. We are excited to have with us Noah.
Hi everyone, I'm Noah. I'm from Pennsylvania. I'm a senior in high school, and I co-hosted Honor Minds with Zion over here.
Hi, my name is Yaneri. I'm 20 years old, and I'm a sophomore in college studying digital media production.
And Barbara?
I'm Barbara McCowan. My pronouns are she, her, and hers, and I work at the Ruth Ellis Center, and I support families in the goals of their choice, and we support them in every area that we can do to make sure that youth have a chance and that family grow together in unity.
That's good. Well, my first question is for you. It actually relates to your job. So I know you work with a lot of parents of LGBTQIA plus youth. So what message do you have for parents who are struggling to understand their child's identity?
Being a parent myself, I can speak for myself. I was a parent that wasn't quite affirming. When my daughter first came out, I didn't know what to do. I wanted to protect. That's the first thing most parents want to do is protect. We want you to be safe, and we know that we live in a cruel world sometimes, so I don't want them to hurt you while you're out there being yourself. And so what I would tell a parent is that please communicate. Keep the lines of communication open, and even if you don't understand, you can still be a part. What I do is allow my youth, I follow my youth. I follow my daughter and say, hey, what can I do to help you? How can I be a better parent? How can I give you the love that you need and the support that you need? And when you are engaging in a community, in your own family, and it's so important that you protect your children. You know, everybody can give respect. If they don't understand, they can be respectful. And so using pronouns and chosen names and things like that can mean the world. One affirming parent will save their youth from suicide, from those rejecting behaviors being practiced in the home. We need to be careful of those types of things because they're very harmful to our young people. And when we give love, love shines, in a rich way in all of us.
Definitely, I agree with that. Noah, we know that queer people aren't really represented in this country and don't receive the same protections as other people. So what systemic changes would you like to see in this country to kind of stop that and have representation for them?
Well, the list for that just doesn't end. As any minority knows, representation is a really important thing. Often we're left out when there's no need for us to be. We just want to be part of the same group of people that, the Bill of Rights and the Constitution says it protects. So there's really no reason for lawmakers to be, singling us out and, telling trans people that they're not allowed to use the bathroom that they want to use. And for, inspecting children's genitals when they just want to play sports. So I want to see overall people of color, gay people, trans people, anybody who is queer or a minority to just be accepted as everybody else.
Okay, thank you. Ineri, I'm going to move on to you. We know representation is so important. So can you speak on a time where you saw yourself in media?
In media, I think social media definitely helps build those communities more and definitely helps you express yourself more. For me in high school, it was the environment where I was able to create a friend group that was welcoming at one point, and we all discussed what clothes we would like to wear. Even when you create that friend group, my high school is in this downtown really populated area, and there's a bunch of stores there that we would go to look at clothes together, try on clothes together. So in that way, just building a community and having more conversations.
And what did that community mean to you?
Community is definitely coming together, having conversation, and I think a lot of that definitely includes social media. Definitely brings a lot of conversation to the table and helps people plan out events as such.
Okay, and Barbara, would you like to add to that, to the importance of community and representation for young queer people?
Yes, it is so important to be valued and to be able to tell that young person that you can be anybody you want to be. You can dream, you have vision, creativity. We should push our children in the area that makes them comfortable. Stop picking, you're going to be a doctor, maybe not. Just go with what's there, and that's what I do. So I empower parents to be able to listen and understand and learn together. So we help each other. I don't know everything and you don't know everything. Most parents understand that much, that we don't know everything, but we can wait. If we listen, we can learn together and we can actually share together. And we can ask each other questions. What did you do in your home that helped you? And what am I doing? So we share, we bounce off each other. How can I help you and how can you help me? I think that community is so important to be safe. So we provide a safe place at our agency. We provide journey areas where children can grow up and be safe and feel confident. So when they get to the low energy people, they be more confident in saying, you know what, that's not who I am. You just don't understand me. So be yourself and allow your children and the family to grow together, because it's so important that we protect each other and that we actually show up together and that with love. And then when they see that displayed, they don't usually attack us too much. They'll go to the next one.
Definitely, definitely. I want to define the term queer joy. So, Yanira, can you define that for me and for the audience and what that means to you?
Yeah, queer joy is a feeling you get when encountering positive progress for gender equality and gender diversity. What that kind of looks like for me is, again, very social media and starting those conversations and attending peaceful protests.
Noah, can you talk a little bit about how you found community? I know from previous experiences you talked about how you lived in more of a conservative part of the U.S. So can you just talk about how you found community?
Yeah, so as anybody knows who lives in a small town, it's kind of hard to find people to relate to when you're recognized as the odd person out. I've been incredibly lucky. I have a great group of friends. It might be a very small group, but I love these people to death. They're the most genuine people I know. And I, met them through school. And, if you don't have that resource to find anybody that relates to you, it's important to know that, we live in the 21st century. It's 2023. We have the internet. As much as, we might look at the internet and scoff sometimes when it comes to, virtual relationships, it's really a great resource to find people who relate to you, especially if you're queer, you're transgender, you're any person who is not the typical cis white male, right? So through the internet you can find, chat groups, you can find a community on TikTok, on, Discord, Reddit, whatever, or you can find, groups that you can meet in person in the local big city near you and all of that. So once again, I've been incredibly lucky, but for every gay kid who might be into sports and art, there's probably 10, 20 straight people who are into that same thing. So proportionately, we're at a disadvantage when it comes to seeking friendships and places that we feel accepted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Barbara, I want to move on to you. I know you work with a lot of young people and parents and all of that. Do you have anything to add to what Noah said about representation and the importance in finding community?
Yes, I agree with you, Noah. It's so important because sometimes that's the only support that they have. So what we do is connect those youth together so they can support each other, so they can have their own community and their own support group, even when the parent is a little tough, so they can talk about those types of things. It's so good to be safe where we're not gonna, confidentiality going on, we're not gonna report it back out, where they can know you can be yourself here, you're free here. And so those type of spaces are so important to the development of healthy relationships, being able to be comfortable being yourself, because a lot of times it's difficult to try to explain who you really are. You just be who you are. And we don't send negative vibes out. Like I always tell the parent, you can't be taught this. This is not something they come up, this is not a myth, it's not a game either, but it's so important to give that love, be patient, represent where you can, and things like that. And we make the environment so comfortable that the parent, even that is rejecting, after a while will start to be affirming. So we just continue to give you the positive sides of life, and we continue to support that youth in the back. So what I do is I ask the youth, hey, how can I work with your parent, what we're struggling with at home, so we can get down to the real thing. When I see the parent, like, hey, so let's talk about that. Those types of things. So sometimes you just don't feel comfortable because you think you're out there by yourself. But I'm a parent as well, so I know the struggle. We hit every system we could hit, but that didn't destroy me and my family. We love each other, so no matter what you throw at us, the government or whoever, we're coming back with a blast because we're together and we're gonna love on each other, and we'll find others like us and we'll support each other. So it's important to have that community. It's everything to me. What I see in the families is everything. It helps so much, for that young person really starting to grow up and starting to use their voice, because they were silent. I don't know what to say. I don't know how to act. But now they're saying, hey, I'm good. It's okay. Everybody's not going to like me. I'm not going to like everybody. So it's okay to be you.
I think that it's also very important to spread love, and I feel like that's really what you're doing in the grand scheme of things. So that's nice. Yeah. So I'm going to move on, and this question is for all of you. So if you could say something to someone who is struggling with their identity and struggling with expressing themselves, what would you say to them? And Noah, you can go first.
I would say that, first of all, you don't owe an explanation of who you are to anybody. I think when you are having that identity crisis, it's important to keep the focus on yourself rather than other people. You really need to get down to the nitty-gritty and figure out who you are, like, inside and out. And you don't have to have it 100% of the way there, but you need to have at least a general idea of who you are before you can start, showing that to other people.
I think what I would say is definitely there's no rush. You shouldn't feel any pressure to figure it out quickly. It could take you years, a decade even. But definitely be open to experimenting, and it's okay not to like certain things, but how would you know that you don't like it if you don't try it?
Definitely. And Barbara, you can go ahead as well.
I agree 100% with both of you. What I do is tell the children that you don't have to come and say, hey, I'm a transgender, my name is, no, your name is who your name is. You don't have to explain yourself, because that's not what other people do. So just be yourself, and if they accept you, or you're having a problem at school, we're on our way. That's where the meeting come in. Your parent and the child, we meet at the school, we make a meeting, and we call all the principal and all their staff, and then I bring my team together. We'll bring whoever you need us to bring, and we will sit down and discuss it, so that youth will have the same opportunity for a good education as everyone else. So if you're being bullied or whatever, we're going to address it right away. We don't play with things like that. So we address it right away. We bring our professionalism with them. The parent and the youth go first, and then I back up everything that they need. So we'll go together to that table, and we won't be quiet until we get some things done. So everybody feels safe and everybody feel valued, and then we move in that space, because it's so important to feel valued. Everybody should be respected. And I said, if you want respect, then we have to give it. They might be young people, but they're human just like you are. Nobody wants to be talked down on. None of us want to be disrespected because we're who we are. You can't be anybody else. Who else can we be but ourselves? So I tell them, be yourself, be the best you, and love on yourself, and we'll keep moving in that space.
Yeah. Definitely. So the key is expression and loving yourself and being able to express yourself in a safe space.
Yes.
Yeah. So Ineri, can you talk a little bit about how you express your gender and identity, etc., and what that means to you?
Yeah, a few ways I express myself. I think, the clothing that I wear, definitely the makeup that I wear, definitely helps me feel a lot more confident. And another way that I express myself, definitely through my tattoos. Kind of just tells their own little story and stuff like that. And it's nice to see in different communities, just through social media, other people expressing themselves, and I kind of get those kind of same ideas and how to express myself similar.
Thank you for that. You have all given us so much to think about and be grateful for. Thank you so much. Next up, we'll hear from our audience. Stay tuned.
If you're questioning whether this is the right decision, if you're questioning whether this is what is really going on with you, if you're questioning whether there are people out there that can help you, the answer is yes, there are people that can help you.
My philosophy is make it better. I think so many times being in the queer community, we feel so powerless. And I'd like to remind youth that they are powerful and they have the power to have the life that they want to live.
Welcome back. It's time to hear from our audience, and I'm sure they have many questions for our panelists.
Hi. So my question is, as far as community, we know being young and being in school is a part of that. So my question is, do you guys have any experience with GSAs? Were they instrumental in helping you as far as maybe coming out, or what do you think they can do to be better and be more helpful to our youth?
I used to attend the in-person public high school for the last few years. I unfortunately hadn't had that pleasure, but when I was, we had a GSA club, and one thing that I definitely noticed is that it was very watered down. They really hyped it up on the first day and said, we're gonna, talk about this. We're gonna talk about mental health, queer education, sex ed for queer individuals, people who are transgender, all of that. And that's not at all what we got. It was the complete opposite. It was like just barely brushing the surface. So if I was able to change it, I would just make it a lot more in depth. And another problem with that GSA club was that that was the year that COVID closed all the schools. And then coming back the next year, we had basically no extracurriculars other than band, orchestra, chorus, and sports. So all those kids who were in GSA were now being, left by themselves with no other outlet and nothing else to do. So I think we need to put more of a focus into, resources in our schools for students where they can gather and feel comfortable together, and they certainly need the funding as well to continue to perform and once again give students what they need.
None of the schools that the youth that I serve didn't have any support there, only just a half an hour, maybe an hour with the social worker once a week or whatever. That was our only connection. We tried, and the youth that I service just walked away like, we don't want to be inside anymore. We just want to be left alone, and we want to be safe. So I would love to see more of that. Groups in safe places to know that you are okay, and that are more people in your high school that need support, that don't get it, so we need that.
So there are those out there who believe that a program like this is promoting LGBTQ rather than educating, and believe that an agenda is being pushed. How do you communicate with someone like that?
That's a really difficult question to answer. Many of the people who are anti-LGBTQ, they're not ones that are willing to reason with you. All we can do is just continue, communicating what we've been communicating, and hopefully at some point it'll catch on.
I think for me, it's just expressing that it's an option. It's giving the youth the option to choose towards that route, and just keep reminding the youth that it's nothing that you have to do this or you have to make a choice. It's just a way to express yourself, really, and it's not really something that's pushed. It would be hard to kind of put it in a box and lock it away, and then when they're older and they get to a point where they hear about this conversation, then they're like, oh my God, like that was the thing that I was missing when I was younger. So it can kind of can put a pause on their progress. So it's always good to have that conversation and let them know that it's an option.
Yeah, every individual is exactly that. They're an individual. Right. And only you can make the decision to be who you are rather than keep who you are inside of yourself.
So my question is for Barbara. I was curious how community impacts the mental health of the individuals who are able to find the community and safe spaces that you help create.
How they find us is through get referrals from other people in the community. And we attach that the services that individually that you need, and we work with the family there. Some of the families want to be in maybe therapy and work with me, so I can help to support their parent and them learning how to just support their children. And also, anybody that can refer, anyone can, and say, hey, we need services, and you're welcome to come to the drop-in center anytime for just to be in the safe space. So that's open to anybody to do that part. And what I've seen from just having one affirming parent, I've seen the youth just light up. Now first they didn't want to talk to anybody and they were isolating. Now they'll get on a platform anywhere. They show up in the school and they talk about what I'm feeling, to others, and let them know that you're not going to just treat me any kind of way. I won't take it anymore. So those types of things. I'm seeing some leaps and bounds with others, these families, and it's amazing because we started with, I'm not doing this. You're not going to do this, and I'm not going to have it. But after from that to say, I love you, and I'm going to do whatever I have to do so you can be healthy and have a chance to grow up in a joyful life and not just existing.
So as a queer educator myself who does run a GSA at my school and tries to be a part of the community and things like that, my question for the entire panel is there anything else you would need to see or anything you want to see from queer adults in these spaces as far as support, connection, help, things like that?
Every single person is unique. Every single group of students is unique. So number one, you just need to, be forward and ask them what they really need. And, you're probably not going to get an answer because, they're going to, act all shy about it and be like, oh yeah, you're doing great, you're fine. But one thing that I needed was just emotional support. I feel like, during my coming of age and all of that with my gender and sexual identity, I was, kind of left by myself, and there was no one else I could really talk to about it, and no one who could just help me bounce off my own thoughts. So that's the main thing for me, is just somewhere where they can really voice themselves and talk to you about the things that nobody really wants to talk to other people about.
For me, I think what I want to see more of, in my experience through my school, there are a lot of students that don't really want to talk and sometimes they just don't really want to express themselves. I would like to see more spaces where students can just, like a kind of library room or somewhere you could just hang out and just take a breather, get yourself back together, and then return, because not all the time you have to start a conversation.
I would like to see more activities, let them express themselves through art. Also, how do you feel? How can we support each other through the bullying? Who can we talk to when we're feeling suicidal maybe? Where's my safe space to go to? And talk where it's not going to come back in my students. And then what do we do when social media attacks? I had students that attacked on social media, and it was awful because we couldn't get at why are you doing this? And sometimes children can be cruel and not understand that this can cause someone to take their life. So we want to try to let them know that we are people and that we're being who we are. So I think when some of the regular students be able to come to the Alliance and they see that, hey, you're okay. I was thinking different, but now I see that you're all right. Those types of things, just feel valued and wanted, and not rejected, accepted. This is who you are and this is who I am, but we still can come together and support each other. Those types of things. They're looking for some social support, some things to feel a part of, because a lot of times they don't want to get on the football team because it's a bunch of in-between stuff. That bullying piece that tells you, I don't think I want to be a part of anything, but when it becomes a safe space for them, if you can do that, make a safe space and then say, hey, what would you guys like to do? We don't have to do something all the time, but every other week or something, can we have a topic, or either would you want to do an activity, or what can we do to help you feel more comfortable being who you are, and also taking part in sports if you want to, whatever you want to do, how can we support you in that?
Okay, well, that's all the time we have for questions. So I thank you for your insightful advice and your commentary. Really appreciate it. Thank you all for being a part of this conversation on mental health in the LGBTQIA+ youth community. Remember that your stories and experiences are valuable and that there is power in sharing them. You are not alone, and there are resources available to support you. For more information, please visit wellbeings.org and studentreportinglabs.org/onourminds. Let's continue to work together to create a world where all young people, regardless of their sexual orientation or gender identity, can live happy, healthy lives full of love and acceptance. Thank you.